Hello and Happy New Year. We begin 2020 by looking back at 2019. We appreciate everyone who listened to the Providence College podcast last year, and we enjoyed using this medium to share the stories of some of the interesting, engaging, accomplished people who make up the Friartown community. We're looking forward to much more of the same in the coming year. Speaking of interesting, engaging, and accomplished, we begin 2020 with our most popular podcast of last year, a late summer conversation with Father James Cuddy, PC's Vice President for Mission and Ministry. Father James has been in that role for about a year, having previously served as chaplain for 7 years. In between, he was the pastor of St. Joseph Church in New York City for 2.5 years. Father is a Braintree, Massachusetts native who graduated from PC in 1998. And welcome, Father, to your long-awaited and much-anticipated appearance on the Providence College podcast.
Thanks, Joe. I'm very happy to be here and only a little bit placated by the invitation at this point. Exactly how many guests did you have to go through before you finally decided to invite me?
Oh, you're the first one.
No, because I jumped at the opportunity, and finally, at long last, I thought, why have I not been invited onto the podcast? And frankly, some of the guests that you've had on before, not so sure. I thought, this guy? Joe Carr has this guy on?
We've been practicing to try to get ready Joe, to get to the point where we could have you on.
I accept that and believe that with my whole heart. I'm really happy to be here with you today.
So lots of titles: Father, Vice President, and now Lieutenant.
That's it.
Recently, or not so recently, but you were commissioned a lieutenant in the Navy late last year and recently finished some training to be a Navy Reserve chaplain. Tell us a little more about this and start with what inspired you to take this step in your ministry.
Yeah, great question. I'm very, very happy to have finished what they call the basic leadership course, the professional naval chaplaincy school, which is in Newport, which is nice short commute. And this was a kind of a vocation within a vocation. I've been the happiest Dominican priest in the world, almost unfairly happy with all of the things I've been able to do, and the Dominican brothers with whom I've had an opportunity to live and serve, and all of that dating back to my own time as a student here, getting to know the Dominicans then. So this is sort of a call within a call, recognizing that the men and women who serve in armed forces, and in particular in the Navy, the Marines, and the Coast Guard, because that's who the Navy chaplains serve, they have a tremendous role and responsibility in serving our country and serving places around the world, and oftentimes serving in harm's way and having to do things and see things that no one should really have to do, have to see. And how do you prepare yourself for something like that? How do you make sense of some of those things? And so I've always had a very near and dear place in my own heart and in my prayers for those who are serving in that capacity. And I came to know some Navy chaplains and come to respect them, admire the work that they had done, and had asked our provincial years ago, if the opportunity ever comes up and if there's ever a need for guys from our province to serve in this capacity, I'd be very happy to do so. And so that kind of, he gave me the, okay, yeah, sounds good. Let me write this down in my imaginary notebook because we're never going to talk about it again. And so, I made the offer and put it out there, and it didn't go anywhere, and okay. But it never went away in prayer. So sort of it was in the background. It's something that I'd like to do if the opportunity ever presented itself. And a couple of years ago, our provincial gave the thumbs up to pursue this call within the call, and so we were off and running. And every step along the way, Joe, there have been a lot of confirmations here that this is what God has in store as part of my vocation to be a Dominican friar and priest.
Can you give an example of that? What were some of the things that made you know this was the right decision for you?
Well, there were a couple of occasions where I had, as you mentioned, I commissioned last fall, and so I've been doing standard reserve stuff, 1 weekend a month, and then you get some annual training, a couple weeks over the course of the year. And during a regular drill weekend, I had an opportunity to speak with a sailor who had just come off of active deployment for about 8 months and was having a hard time reintegrating into his ordinary life. And, how do you step back into the family after that kind of time away? There's all sorts of adjustments. And so I was able to have a great conversation with this particular fella, and had in the midst of that, felt like, all right, this is really where God wants me this Sunday morning here. In another kind of funnier confirmation, I find myself in these last 8 weeks of training. We'd get up at 4 a.m. and we'd step off for physical training at 4:30, and you're down in this field in Newport that's it's been visited by geese. I don't know, give everyone a second to kind of take that in. The geese were not there, but you knew that the geese had been there, and you're getting barked at by a Marine gunnery sergeant who's encouraging you to do more push-ups than you care to do at that time. And you start to laugh a little bit and kind of get into all that and realize that normal people don't actually enjoy doing this at this time in this place. And so the fact that you can form those relationships with all of the other chaplains who are going through the same thing and actually take great joy in that. Again, it is something complementary to all of the ordinary ministerial things that we do here at the college and elsewhere in the Dominican world. If you're happy doing that sort of stuff, you can take that as a sign that you're in a good place.
So this program, it would seem, would have involved chaplains from various denominations. What was that part of the experience like for you?
Yeah, one of the great things about military chaplaincy is that you're a chaplain for all people. And we'll have a chance to talk about this a little bit more, I'm sure, when we talk about mission and ministry here at Providence College. Of course, you want to provide religious ministry for those of the same faith. So, for a Catholic chaplain, you're saying Mass and hearing confessions and, and serving the Catholic population, whether it's on a ship or at a base chapel, or you're working with the Marines, with a Marine battalion someplace. But not everyone shares your faith. So you want to make sure that you fulfill the second role of a chaplain, is to facilitate religious worship for all of these folks according to their own traditions. So if you've got a complement of Protestants or Muslims or Jewish sailors and Marines, that you're able to help them to worship and to pray in ways proper to their own faiths, whether it's by identifying and training lay leaders, or finding someone who's able to come in, a professional minister, as it were, who's able to come in and serve in that capacity. It's important for the chaplain to facilitate the free exercise of religion for all of those folks of different faiths. So that was something that was reflected in all of the other members of my class in the basic leadership course. In fact, for the first 4 weeks, I was the only Catholic. And so it was an interesting thing to try to engage in those conversations, both trying to learn about the different faiths represented by all my colleagues and friends in the chaplain corps, but also try to help them to better understand the Catholic faith. And so we had devotional periods every morning led by one of the chaplains, and my morning came up, and so I led them in a session called Cultivating a Devotion to Saint Joseph. And so the first thing starts with, okay, listen, Catholics do not worship saints. We'll start right there. And here's why Saint Joseph is to be revered right here. And sort of because those relationships were already there was great personal esteem and respect there. We're able to kind of needle each other a little bit and say, all right, listen, knuckleheads, this is what you think. You're wrong. Here's why Catholics do not worship saints. Here's why we incorporate the saints into our lives of prayer and all this, and here's why you should be doing it, and here's how you do it. And so you find yourself doing chants in proper Dominican tones in all of this, and this is something that I assure you our separated brethren had never heard before. So there's an opportunity to learn from all these other folks and to teach a little bit as well.
That's interesting, that opportunity or even almost responsibility as the Catholic chaplain in this group. These Protestant chaplains and others will have Catholic sailors and Marines around them, so they need to know something about the faith, and you were put there to help them understand it.
Absolutely, and the other two roles that chaplains fulfill in the sea services, we talked about the providing religious ministry for your own folks who share the same faith, and the facilitation of the practice of free exercise of religion for the others. There is you are there for to provide care and counseling to everybody within the particular command, people of any faith, people of no faith at all. Everyone knows that they can come and talk to chaps. And one of the things that is kind of distinct there among chaplains in all of the sea services is that the chaplain is somebody with whom you enjoy complete confidentiality, where, if you're struggling as a sailor or Marine, you say something to someone in the chain of command, and it triggers, a mandatory conversation with the higher ups, and so consequently, you might not feel free to speak your mind or express any struggles you might be having with anyone except the chaplain. And so that's something that, in learning from the other chaplains, is those of different faiths and those who have been around the block once or twice or 10 times, you're able to be a better resource for any one of those folks who might come in, whose own life experiences might be completely different than your own or anything you've ever heard of before. But because we're trained the way that we are, hopefully there's a better chance of helping that person to be at ease, to ask the right questions, to encourage them to speak their minds and all of that, and give them the best possible care that we can. The fourth role there, in addition to the providing, facilitating, caring, we actually there's an advisory capacity, which is pretty cool, where because we have the sense of what's going on within the command, because people can speak to the chaplain confidentially, you've got an opportunity to be sort of an advisor to the commanding officer, so that he or she might better come to understand what's going on the ground in a way that they might not otherwise. So you can say, excuse me, sir, ma'am, there's from the trenches here, you've got there's a morale issue. Some of these, these guys just found out that their tour got extended. They haven't been able to get a shower. They haven't, this and that. And so, you can present that to the commanding officer, maybe present some ideas, simple ways that morale might be improved without compromising the mission. And so that's an opportunity that you have there too. So it goes far beyond just, I'm a priest, so I want to go say mass. I want to, I'm a rabbi. I want to perform what would be kind of akin to synagogue services for the Jewish sailors and Marines. So it's really a really, really neat thing, and goose visits included.
Yeah, push-ups to boot while you're at it. So
it's gross.
I can imagine. So will you be attached to a reserve unit? Are you already? How does this work from here?
Yeah, so everyone's got a home. I have a reserve unit. It's called a NOSC. It's a Naval Operations Support Center. So you get all your trainings there. They make sure you're in, you're ready to go if you're ever called to serve in some capacity, someplace. Whether it's there's some national security issue, whether there's some sort of natural disaster, or God forbid, if there's some sort of international incident. If we ever find ourselves in real conflict that requires the mobilization of reserves, you're ready to go. You don't have to say, oh, geez, I got to get my vaccinations, or I got to go through my these government mandated trainings here. You're trained up and ready to go. One of the things that's presenting itself now as an opportunity is the chance to serve as a priest at the base chapel in Newport, where there hasn't been a Catholic priest assigned to that command in a while. They're able to have mass on Sunday mornings because there's a priest from the Diocese of Providence who will come in on a contract. So he's not a military chaplain, but a retired padre who's able to come in and offer mass and hear confessions and do all that sort of stuff. no, he's not going to be able to continue his service, which he's done very well and faithfully for a long time now. So there's actually going to be a chance for me to go down and this almost, have this as a almost like a parish, right? So it would be, and Newport's huge. They call it the crossroads of the Navy. There are a bunch of commands down there, and spend a career in the Navy, you're going to spend some time in Newport. Officer Development School, Officer Candidate School, the Naval Academy Preparatory School, the Naval War College, all kinds of different training commands are there. So there are always a ton of folks, and it looks like I'm going to have a chance to be down there on that regular basis, Sundays, saying Mass and hearing confessions and working with some of those great men and women there. So it couldn't be, that couldn't be any better. You get to form relationships with those folks and bring them the sacraments and pray with them and talk about Jesus and all. It's good stuff. All the while, it looks like I'll probably get attached to some other unit, and so I'll be whether it's with the Marines, with the Navy, with the Coast Guard, and that usually requires every 2 or 3 months you spend the weekend drilling with them. But that wouldn't be as local as Newport. Hopefully, someplace in the Northeast. The closer, the better. And so, if anyone's listening to this in the 4th Marines, that we can go to Fort Devens is ideal. Garden City, New York, Philadelphia, something like that.
You get your eye on a few places then.
Well, yeah, and it's from closest to furthest. That goes all the way down to New Orleans, though, so that might be a bit of a stretch. Concentric
circles. That makes sense. A good way to look at those things. One more question on this before we move on to talking about your work here day to day at PC. Is there anything in your family history or your experiences related to military or public service that may have kind of inspired you to look in this direction? Well, my father is retired military, served in the Navy, and this has been a great support from my parents. But in a particular way, this is the language that my father speaks, and so when I tell him I made a visit to this destroyer. Well, he served on a destroyer, had a med cruise on the Robert Wilson, and so to say, all right, I was here. He goes, oh, did you see this? Did you see that? So that's a lot of fun. My uncle's also my godfather served in the Navy. My grandfather, both grandfathers, one was served in the Army, but my grandfather Murphy, my mother's father, served in the Navy in World War II, and it's a great blessing that he's still with us and had a chance to come down and be part of the graduation ceremony and all that. And it's really, really cool to share that with him, with everyone in the family, but him in particular, along with my dad, to see, a few generations. But you want to see somebody honored. You bring a World War II vet to one of these things, and it's there are a lot of people who with all sorts of fancy decorations on their shoulder boards, and the chief of chaplains, the 2-star admiral, and all this, but to have a World War II Navy vet is a pretty cool thing. So yeah, there's that history there, and I'm proud to be part of that in my own family. And honored they should be, the greatest generation indeed. So no doubt, really a nice thing. We could do a whole episode on that, right? That's for sure. Let's talk a bit about mission and ministry at Providence College, and for a lot of our listeners are alumni, and when we were here at various times, this part of the community has been arranged differently, organized differently, and has done different things. What is mission and ministry in 2019? What sorts of things do you manage in this division? Well, mission and ministry is anything that has to do with the Catholic and Dominican mission and identity of the college has something to do with my division. So the biggest part of that, understandably, is the Office of Campus Ministry in the chaplain's office. So we've got a great team of Dominicans and lay campus ministers who are working both within the chapel and the campus ministry center, but working across campus with elements of the Office of Student Affairs, most especially Res Life, and working with hall directors and RAs and the senior staff there to try to
train them in things related to mission, but also have a presence there in each one of the halls. Now, I'm sure you remember back in the day, as I do, when I was a student here, you'd have a Dominican living in all of the residence halls. And so we had Father Ferguson in Guzman back in the day.
Father Detling in Fennel.
Oh, yeah, Big Cy. Big Cy, as he's known in my office.
Never heard that before.
I may have just made that up.
Now you tell me.
Big Cy. Yeah, we had, and, Father Shanley was the hall director in Stevens Hall, which is now Feinstein. So there's a rich history of Dominicans being involved in res life. Right now, there are very few Dominicans who actually live in the halls. Kind of the model of res life has changed, where you don't have Dominicans serving as hall directors. You've got hall directors serving as hall directors. And so it's good to be able to take what I think is the best of having Dominicans around back in the day to, give all the students in the halls will have a chance to get to know at least one Dominican. This is your hall chaplain, and to cultivate a relationship there, to have him be kind of a spiritual presence. So we'll have our Dominicans sitting at the doors, helping with move-in, helping to move some boxes. It's funny in all of this. Father Peter Martyr, our chaplain, came in for our weekly meeting last week and said, "All right, I'm having a hard time getting all the assignments down. We Dominicans, some go on to other things. We don't have the same complement of friars we do as we did at the end of last year. So he goes, I need another hall chaplain." I said, "Well, where?" "Guzman." I looked at him. I haven't been so insulted since I wasn't invited to Joe Carr's podcast. I said, "Well, when are you going to ask me? I'm Mr. Guzman here, right? I spent 2 years there. I've got all my everything I know in the world is through Guzman Hall. Ours was the class that took up the sod from the front lawn and put it down in the shower, because we wanted to. Who doesn't like walking through morning dew on the front lawn, right? That's the way. So we thought that was a good idea. We took up the sod. Did not work so well in practice, but our hearts were in the right place. Our hearts were in the right place. Our bodies were in the right place come Saturday morning, because we had a mandatory dorm cleaning as a result of our creativity. The hall director at the time did not appreciate the creativity, unfortunately. Anyhow, I'm Mr. Guzman. When are you going to ask me? So I'm very happy to come here on this podcast and announce formally that I am the new Guzman Hall chaplain, taking the long tradition, going back to Father Fergus, as I said.
Generations of Guzman alumni are no doubt very pleased.
Very, very pleased. And so I get to, what's going to be creepier than, having me there and move-in day and carrying boxes in for these kids and saying, "This is my room." And nobody wants that. They're going to want blessings and exorcisms and stuff like that. Well, I'll ask them if I can just come by. Come by every so often.
See you Friday night.
Unannounced. Come by and do it.
Perfect.
And so we're always looking for opportunities to do all that. The more we can engage with students on their own terms, on their turf, the more we can expose them to as many Dominicans as possible, different generations, different interests. This one might not get along with me, which I completely understand, but might get along famously with this other guy. Great. Wonderful. So that's something that the campus ministry folks are doing beyond just campus ministry working there. We've also got a great program that's going into its second year, working with athletics. So all of our athletic teams have a Dominican friar or a sister who are attached to that team, and they'll go to practices and games or matches and get to know the student athletes and the coaching staffs and all of that.
And you drew a very good assignment on that front, too.
Yeah. You can tell who the boss is.
Right.
My division. I get first dibs. I'm the hockey chaplain, men's ice hockey chaplain. So we get a chance to spend some time with Coach, and the boys are dynamite, and spent a lot of time with those guys last year, and made a good run into the Frozen Four, and just came a few minutes away from winning the national championship. Because like yourself, I'm convinced that if we get past Duluth there, we take care of business in the national championship game. But
absolutely, what a team Duluth had, and what's better than hockey players? They're great people to be
honestly
around.
What's better than hockey players? That could be another podcast. I'm just all of the things that laying out a whole season of, we'll call it Car and Cuddy on the Providence College podcast.
A whole separate channel. That sounds good. We're ready whenever you are. Would you expand a little bit on the role of the lay professionals, staff in this operation? Your associate vice president is Bob Funder, a lay person.
Yeah.
And a great many people really playing incredibly important roles in this important work.
Sure. Boy, we'd even start with that. On the campus ministry level, we've got some great lay campus ministers, the director of retreats, the director of peer ministry, the director of liturgical music, to name a few, and I don't want to leave anyone out, but these are folks who have a great love for the church, love of the Lord, received these calls to ministry, which they've gone out and they've done work kind of testing that call. They've gone and done professional training at different theology faculties, Boston College, Notre Dame, Villanova, places that have real top programs for lay campus ministers, to give a theological but also kind of a pastoral framework for this work. And we've been very, very lucky over the years, dating back to before my time as chaplain. We've been able to recruit and hire the best of the best. It's such a privilege to work with some of these folks, including Bob Funder, whom you mentioned, is now serving as associate vice president for mission and ministry. So the two of us work together, overseeing the division here. But that relationship started when I was chaplain. I hired Bob as campus minister, and he's one of the smartest guys I know. He's read everything. He's got a tremendous heart for ministry. He's generous. He's creative. He's hardworking. He's good humored. He's the best. And it's very important now, I think. And if there's anybody who listens to this podcast who's from a generation or two before, when it was all Dominicans all the time, that's not the place that we've got here today, and that's good. It's good. There's when you think about the Catholic and Dominican identity of Providence College and the mission that kind of springs from that, it has to be a team endeavor. You've got to have the Dominicans. I mean, the Providence College without the Dominicans probably isn't Providence College. But at the same time, this place is great because we've had so many people who aren't Dominicans. These great lay faculty and staff members who either maybe they're alums themselves and have had great experiences of that and want to continue their work at the college, kind of paying forward gifts that they had received when they were students, or found this to be such a meaningful part of their lives that they want to make this their professional home as well. And we've got so many people, legends, whose names are on classrooms and lecture halls and in some buildings here, who have been great partners in the cultivation of the mission and identity of the place. And that's I think we've got that represented very well and expressed very clearly in the way that our staff is organized, especially with myself and with Bob working together. There's nothing that doesn't happen in the division that isn't somehow being kicked around by the two of us together. And so it was actually the first thing that I did when I had the opportunity to come back and found out, the provincial, and talking to Father Shanley that I was going to come back here. I was on Bob Funder's porch, honest to goodness. I found out late in the afternoon, and I showed up on Bob Funder's porch a couple hours later and told him, hey, well, guess what? I'm coming back in this capacity. And he was all excited, and we did the bro hug and all this sort of stuff. And, he and I have been talking about for years, geez, what are the things that we think are important, and what are the things that we'd want to do if we had a chance to work in this capacity. He goes, well, I'm really happy that you've got a chance to do this. I said, well, this next part's going to knock your socks off. I said, I want you to come with me, and let's do this together. We've been running our mouths off for years about, we should do this and we should emphasize that, and want to give it a shot. And so he says, all right, well, my wife and I have to pray about it, and I kind of rolled my eyes at it, which is always good when the priest rolls his eyes. You say you got to pray, and I'm like, all right, you done yet? Have you prayed enough? This is the voice of God, Bob. Say yes, let's go. Let's get to work. And happily, the fruit of that prayer was Bob and his great wife, Liz, saying, this is something we want to do. So here we are.
And Bob, incidentally, also an alum, class of 2009.
2009.
So
loved it so much. He joined the company. He's the best. I think it's one of the things that I've been able to do well is hire people who are much smarter than I am. And he's unbelievable. The staff that we've got in the campus ministry office, they're unbelievable. So it's a really talented, generous, creative, faithful group, and I'm proud to be part of the team.
Incidentally, it's probably amplified here because we have a small number of people in a large number of people in a small place, but this important role played by the lay members of your staff reflects to some extent what we see in our parishes.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's not surprising.
No, absolutely. And, if you look at some of the larger issues facing the church right now, obviously there's the, so many self-inflicted wounds related to the clergy sexual abuse scandal. One of the things that's come out loud and clear is that, for there to be healing and renewal in the church, this is not going to be the work of the clergy alone. Of course, it won't happen without the clergy, but this is something that requires the generosity, the creativity, the hard work, the teamwork that we should have as members of the body of Christ, not just these folks over here, but the whole body working together. So this is, if there's going to be that kind of renewal, that's something that needs to happen across all kinds of divides, including, most importantly, I think, the clergy and lay. And that's actually what you talk about projects that we've got going on. I just kind of highlighted the campus ministry side of things, but we've got the Center for Catholic and Dominican Studies, and I think part of what Father Shanley had in mind when he created the Office of Mission and Ministry, when he began his presidency in 2005. One of the first things
he did, incidentally.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. Was he wanted to elevate mission and ministry, which is obviously so important, to that cabinet level, so that part of all of the conversations, whether related to finance and business or academics or student affairs or legal or anything like that, there'd be a mission voice there to add to the discussion or ask questions or try to ping all of those different areas to see what role should mission play in here, so that questions of mission and identity might come to permeate all of the areas of the college. So I think it's a very clever move. Well, of course, I think it's a clever move, Joe. I wouldn't have a job otherwise. And when Father Shanley's listening, I want to make sure that he knows how important I think the division of Office of Mission Ministry is.
I think we all think it's paid major dividends.
Just and get nervous,
Understandable.
Yeah. And we think that the Catholic University is going to have a very important role to play in finding that healing and renewal in the church broadly, and not just the scandal, things related to sexual abuse scandal, but by and large, you go to the parish, you look in the pews, they're not full as they would have been however long ago. You just look at the demographics here, right? When some of the traditional feeders that we've had for Providence College, and we've drawn so many of our great students from over the years, aren't producing the same number of students in the same way. Some of those, we've got fewer and fewer larger Catholic families in the Northeast. And so we're not going to see as many applicants, and we're not going to see as many students enroll from those traditional areas. And, we've got to take that into consideration and Raul Fonts and his team, my goodness gracious, what a great job they've done in trying to, we still get record numbers of applications and higher than anticipated numbers of enrolled students, and all that shows how brilliant they've been able to respond to the changing demographic. But nevertheless, we've got to recognize that we've got some issues in the church that if they're not attended to, we're going to see ourselves fewer and fewer and fewer. And we believe that the Catholic University in general, and Providence College in particular, can in fact have a part to play in helping to make Christ known and loved, and have to communicate the contents of the faith. This is what the Catholic Church is all about. Oftentimes, you see, even among the Catholic students who come here, not a great devotion and love for their own faith. Are you Catholic? Yeah. When's the last time you went to Mass? Confirmation. And it's not that there's anything against it necessarily, but there's nothing really for it either. And so if we can take advantage of the opportunities that we have here in the classroom and outside of the classroom to kind of make a proposal for the faith, to say, hey, your lives are going to be better off for having this relationship with the Lord. Your lives are going to be better off for being a regular participant in the life of the church, most especially going to Mass. It's not just here's something you do, it stinks, suck it up. It's no good for now, but the eternal rewards are wonderful. But this is having this relationship with the Lord, lived at the heart of the church, takes nothing away from what makes life good, but actually makes that which is good even better. If we can make that proposal to our students, and in a way invite all of the members of the community into that, we'll have performed a wonderful, vitally important service to the church, both locally here, and then hopefully when people go home and go back to the places they came from, they'll be able to bring that with them.
So this evangelization makes me think of one of the many great initiatives of campus mission and ministry, and that is the RCIA program. And every spring we have this beautiful Sunday event where students are drawn to a sacrament, baptism or confirmation, and it's just an incredible thing to see this happen. I wonder how that feels to you when you see this event, when you see these young people taking these important steps in their lives.
I'll tell you, it's a great source of hope, Joe. That's my takeaway in the middle of that Mass, because I get to, I had my 7 years working in campus ministry, and that's a tough thing. Father Bonaventure Chapman has just gone on for doctoral studies, but he shepherded that program through for a couple of years. Father Dominic Werner had done the same. Father Justin Brophy, and by the way, all these knuckleheads are fighting with each other. Who's got the biggest class? Who's brought the most students? And blah blah blah. It's really it's a noble thing that they're doing, trying to compete with one another. It doesn't matter, just get the numbers up. That's their whole MO. I'm just kidding, of course. But that's a lot of heavy lifting trying to get all of the students to that day. So RCIA, in case anyone doesn't know, is the Rite of Christian Initiation for Adults. And it's a program that we've offered since before I was a student here at Providence College. And it would be say you're a student who's never been baptized before, but you're interested in, all right, what's this? I'm kind of surrounded by all this. Give me a Catholicism 101. So you might come to better understand what the church is, or you feel drawn to it, but haven't known what to do with that initial tug. All right. So you go through this program. It starts from the very beginning of, does God exist, and go all the way through. This is what the church teaches. Here's how the church prays. Here's what here's the social doctrine of the church. It will lean into some of the difficult moral teachings of the church that kind of give so many people fits. Here's why the church teaches what she teaches. This and that. And the whole year-long program is designed to bring students to that point where they'd be baptized and received into the church and receive First Holy Communion and be confirmed. But it's also for students who, baptized but never received First Holy Communion. First Holy Communion, but we fell off. We moved at the beginning of high school. I never got confirmed. And what's really, really cool about this is that we see students who are not entering the program because they were dragged by the ear by their parents. That was my story, right? And you mentioned Braintree, Massachusetts. Honest to God, Joe, I was such a meathead in high school. I went to confirmation class not because of great devotion, for the sacrament that was to come. It's because Jill Geary was in the class, and all the guys in our high school class had a crush on Jill Geary, and I didn't have a chance. But there's this 1.5 hours every week at Mrs. McKinnon's house over Twizzlers and those 10-ounce cups of Diet Coke, where this is exclusive Cuddy and Jill Geary time right here. So I had a chance to work my magic there. That worked out pretty well, obviously. Here we are.
What do we know about Jill today?
Joined the priesthood.
Any idea how she's doing?
I'm sure she's doing wonderfully well. That'll be another podcast. The where are you now, Jill Geary? So anyway, that was my level of devotion. I went because I had to go, and I went through and didn't have a whole lot to say one way or the other. If you asked me the day of confirmation, what's confirmation? You would have got a lot of stuttering and a lot of misdirection and all that. But these students who go through RCIA now, they want to go. There's something that they find to be true, to be good, to be beautiful about what it is that they're learning. And so that's the thing. Like when you see a 20-year-old get all fired up and really enter into the course of instruction and then the celebration of the sacraments at the end, to actually see that is such a joy. Like I said, so I don't have to do the heavy lifting now. I'm not the one who's chasing them down. Get these papers, fill out these forms. Where's your sponsor? Stand right here. I just get to kind of watch it from the sanctuary with gratitude to God and to the Dominicans and the campus ministers who are able to bring them along. And it's like, if this can work for this group, well, why not? Why not a larger group? Why not? There aren't any situations so desperate that we shouldn't, throw ourselves in and make that invitation to them. And I'll tell you what, one of the things that we're seeing now that's so great, and this is, I think a lot of us knew this on the level of instinct, kind of a gut feeling, that students who go through this program are the best evangelists in all of this because they're able to invite their own friends. Right. And so, hey, listen, I went through RCIA. You ought to go to this meeting and check this out. I'll bring you to the meeting, or I'll be involved. I want to be one of the teachers next year. If I go and say, hey, kids, you ought to do RCIA, receive First Holy Communion and the sacrament of confirmation. It's great. Or, your life is going to be better. Kids could say, and I understand why, well, of course you say that. Look at you. You're a Dominican. You're a priest. Look at what you're wearing. Oh, hey, guys, you're never going to believe it. Dominican priest says, go to Mass. We'll make you happy. But when it comes from a classmate or it comes from a roommate, that can be the introduction to that relationship with the Lord that kid needs. That can provide that first step that after which so many other joyful, life-giving steps can follow. Which is, I don't know why we're such idiots, Joe. We try to reinvent the wheel with new models of evangelization. This is from the gospel, right? Come and see. This was the disciples inviting their friends to come and meet Jesus. This is why does it take so long to come back to, imagine me at prayer going, hey, Lord, you're never going to believe it. This is what we found worked. And the Lord says back, yeah. Did you read the book? Did I give you the New Testament? Haven't we been doing this for 2,000 years? So that's a great, it's one of the reasons too that the program continues to grow. We've been able to have a record number of students every year come through. I think we had 43, 45 last year, something like that. I wanted to say we had more when I was chaplain, and I was given definitive proof that we did not. So I had to eat a little humble pie.
Have to back off on that a little? Oh, well.
Yeah, but, standing on the shoulders of giants, Joe. You can
Absolutely.
They're building a lovely house on the foundation that was laid in blood, sweat, and prayers for all those years of the Cuddy era.
And every single one of those students is a great achievement. So that's a good way to look at it.
Great saints doing all sorts of great things. And, I just remind the guys now that they're buying last year's model.
Let's talk a little bit about your journey, and thank you. You've been very generous with your time, but this is terrific. I'd like to keep going a little bit longer. Tell us about that path from the young man at confirmation through your time at Providence College to ordination as a Dominican friar.
Joe, there's nothing I like talking about more than myself, and I was wondering when we were going to get around to it.
That's the whole key to hosting a podcast.
Yep. No, I came to Providence College not because it was Catholic or Dominican. I honestly had never heard of the Dominicans before coming to PC. I actually came because it was on the way home from the University of Rhode Island. We were visiting there. Dad said we ought to stop off at PC, and sure enough, it felt right. And I'm thrilled to have an opportunity to be on the podcast finally. But to talk to so many people who have gone through Providence College, who have a connection to Providence College, because this needs no explanation, right? You step on campus and there's just something there that fits. I walked around and, the campus looked the same as other campuses. It doesn't anymore. It's spectacular. The library had, however 100,000 bound volumes, blah, blah, blah. It was just, there was something about the students that we met along the way. I thought, this is a special place. So I wind up coming here, but again, that high school punk who was taken by the ear to Mrs. McKinnon's house for the Twizzlers and the Diet Coke. If I went to Mass, because my family went to Mass, if I was on my better behavior, it was because, Mom was sitting up bolt straight on the couch waiting for me and my sister to get home. First thing you do, come in here, give me a kiss, and so that's going to keep a guy on his better behavior. Where have you been? Who have you been with? So I thought, well, I'm going to go away to school, and Mom's not going to be there, and she's not going to drag me to Mass, and I can stay out as late as I want, and I can do whatever I want. And so I thought I was going to get after it. Well, I was going to be a wild student here. But then, a funny thing happened on the road to debauchery, and that was I fell in with a bunch of guys in Guzman Hall. We're back to Guzman again, who, though they were saints in the making, we'll say. In addition to the ordinary knucklehead stuff that guys in Guzman do with tearing up the sod and doing the hall slip and slide and stuff like that. These are guys who went to Mass. And somebody, again, we talk about come and see. There was a guy who said, "Hey, we're all going to Mass. Do you want to come?" Oh, all right, sure. And so one of the great moments that I've had in my relationship with God was this instinct, and I think it comes directly from God, and God breaking through all the noisiness of my own life and the blindness of my own eyes. And there was this instinct that says, all right, if you're going to go do this, if you're not going to go to church, if you're going to go and be a meathead because you saw Animal House once, only once. Yeah, only once. All right, more than once. At least know what it is that you're going to be leaving behind. I thought, I'm in college now. This is the intellectually honest thing to do. So what is it? And so I got to know a little bit about the faith and had I ought to learn more about this. And this came through, the classroom. I remember some of the, some great theology classes and being exposed to some of the historical, it was the history of the church, but also some of the classics of Christian spirituality that we're exposed to in Civ. A lot of this came through campus ministry. which is one of the reasons why I was so blown away by the opportunity to come back and serve as chaplain, was that the chaplain at the time, Father Joseph Barringer, had such a profound experience on me, in my friends. For us, the priest was the guy who came out and said mass on Sundays. It's kind of like the what do you call it? The little figure on a cuckoo clock, right? It comes out at the hour, arms out, spins around, does this thing, goes back in. That was kind of what the priest was like. We get to be involved with campus ministry and all be inspired by and come to experience the love of him and some of the other Dominicans here. And so it was one of these things. The more I came to know about it, the more I loved it. The more I loved it, the more I wanted to know about it, and all of that. And not just good times, but we had some real moments of crisis on campus, which again, for the PC community listening, God bless Providence College, but every so often we'll have some crisis visit the campus, and whether it's in an accident or students passing away, we've had more than our share of those things, and somehow when they come up, and I experienced this as a student, as chaplain, as vice president, somehow Providence College as a community rises to the occasion, and we're at our best when the worst visits us here. And I was taking a family across campus last week. We just met out in front of Harkins. They got turned around. They didn't know where their car was. And so I said, I'm walking that way, towards your car. So why are you here? He said, well, we're from Westport, Connecticut, and we know the Cardello family. And, everyone knows here, one of our students passed away last year, Gus Cardello. And the family said, we were so moved by how the students responded to try to take care of each other and to take care of Gus's family and all this, that we knew this is a special place. We wanted to be a part of all this. And I was reflecting on that, thinking that this has happened in all of these different ways, different students, different circumstances, different generations. But this is always something that we've known here at PC. And it's one of the things that drew me more and more into my faith and nudged me towards a Dominican vocation, was the role that the church, the priesthood, the Dominicans can play in times of real difficulty for individual students who might be suffering the loss of a parent or sibling or someone close, or some sort of other crisis in their own lives, or the community at large. So there was a profoundly important, deep impact that was made in my own life, that God was making through the Dominicans, through Providence College. So by the end, I thought, I've got to look into the possibility of doing this. Otherwise, my heart's not going to find any rest here. So I'll just, we'll kick the tires on a Dominican vocation. And again, the more I came to know about it, the more I came to love it, more it just sort of fit. So much of my life, Joe, I look back and see just confirmations of a call. We talked about this earlier with Navy chaplaincy. Along the way, some really long days, some difficult stuff, and finding real peace in the midst of that, and take that as a confirmation of the call. Same thing with I come to know more and more about what it would mean to be a Dominican. All right, that makes sense. Take another step here. I will join. I know we'll make vows. Now we'll, in vows for a certain period of time, let's make final vows, solemn vows until death. Move on to the diaconate, ordination to the priesthood all those years later. It was the same thing with coming here in the first place. You take a tour across campus and say, all right, there's something that just fits, and it defies any sort of scientific understanding. There's no real theological explanation of the whole thing. There really is something to be said for that gut feeling that's there. Now, it's not all gut, but it's the gut feeling isn't to be ignored. And so the more I came to know, the more I came to love it. And, here we are, all these many years later,
Well, the greatest confirmation may be what you said in the first minute. You described yourself as the happiest Dominican there is, or words to that effect.
Yeah.
You're happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's important to emphasize that point too. It's that the happiness is not always this unfettered joy, right? So it's in the midst of some real struggles and some difficult times. And I think it's one of the things that we all struggle with is how do you come to understand, all right, I'm not really feeling it right now. I'm not, I wouldn't describe myself as all that joyful. And nevertheless, what I'm doing is right. The place where I am is where I'm supposed to be, because there's nothing perfect this side of heaven. And in the presence of a tough period is by no means an indication that, that we're in the wrong place. It means, hey, you're human. Welcome to the club, fellow. We got hats and jackets and everything, and so that's an important thing to be mindful of. So that experience of being happy and confident and secure, knowing I'm where God wants me to be, is not an experience that's unfamiliar with times of real struggle too. There's there are goose droppings everywhere, Joe. That's a callback to an hour and a half ago when we started this conversation. If anyone came in at the halfway point, you wouldn't understand. So go back and listen to the beginning.
A perfect place to wrap it up. I think we had high expectations, Father, and after all this time, and you have exceeded them by a mile.
Let's do this again, Joe.
Thank you so much. We've got much more we could cover, and we will definitely take you up on that. So
we
appreciate the offer.
The Cuddy and Carr podcast. Carr and Cuddy, excuse me. That's not. I don't want to be presumptuous.
Oh no, reverse alphabetical order is better.
Okay.
You've got it right that way. So thank you so much for your time. This has been great. We really
Thank you,
appreciate
Joe.
it.
God bless you. Appreciate all your great work, and you get a great team here, and it's wonderful to be able to be here on campus with you and everyone grab an oar and start pulling.
We're all very lucky. That's for sure.
Amen.
That's for sure. And thank you for joining us today. You can subscribe to the Providence College podcast at all the usual places, and they're available on the college's YouTube channel. Feedback is welcome at podcast@providence.edu. Thanks to our producer, Chris Judge. I'm Joe Carr. Until next time.